Hey guys, today I'll be making a prediction for the 2024 presidential election between the Secretary of Transportation, Pete Buttigieg, and the former president of the United States, of course, being Donald Trump. So the reason why I'm, choosing this scenario for this video is because Donald Trump, of course, the frontrunner for the GOP, has been for basically the entire year. However, for the Democratic Party, although Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are still the two main frontrunners, Pete Buttigieg's chances of winning the Democratic nomination in 2024 have surged in the last couple of weeks. So besides the two executives at the very top of the executive branch, Pete Buttigieg really is the only Democrat with any significant sort of chance of winning the 2024 nomination. AOC is all the way down at 5 cents per share, Warren at 4, both Sanders and Clinton at 2. So really, Pete Buttigieg is the only Democrat besides Harris and Biden who have a significant chance at winning this nomination at this point. And his chances have increased from 8 cents per share at the beginning of the month of November all the way up to now 18 cents per share. So definitely his chances of winning this nomination have doubled in just the last month. So for Pete Buttigieg, I think that as time goes on, his chances will continue to increase as both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris get even less popular, which is the main issue right now for the Democratic Party in 2024. Their two main potential nominees really are just not showing the numbers that they need to be able to win in 2024. So I'm going to be making this prediction between Buttigieg and Trump. And no, I don't think that Pete Buttigieg is going to be, a better nominee than these top two, because Pete Buttigieg, of course, does have his issues as well. So I'm going to start off by filling in the solid states for the Democratic Party. The states of Washington and California. That gives them, off the bat, 66 electoral votes. They state of Hawaii as well, New York, Vermont, Massachusetts, Maryland, and the District of Columbia. So really not too many solid states for the former mayor, but for Pete Buttigieg, 125 electoral votes, I think he will be able to win with solid margins of over 15%. Now, for Donald Trump, we have the typical solid states for him. However, I do think that both the states of Kansas and Missouri will both be solid, as well as Montana and every single region in Nebraska except for the 2nd District. Redistricting has occurred, and so in 2024, in the 2nd District of Nebraska, it will be even easier for Republicans to win, even though Joe Biden flipped it, very narrowly in 2020, won it by around 6 points. And then in the Deep South, all going to be very solid for the GOP. We also have the states here along the Appalachian Mountains, all going to be very solid for Donald Trump. The state of Indiana as well. I do think that this can be a solid margin for him, even though he won't be running with Pence. And finally, the state of Alaska, I do think will also be solid for the former president. This state was won by Donald Trump by just 10% in 2020, by 14.7% in 2016, by 14 exactly for Mitt Romney in 2012, and 21.5% by John McCain in 2008. So John McCain, he did run with Governor Sarah Palin, who was governor of the state, so that definitely did make a difference for him, but the Republicans have been getting pretty close to 15% for a while afterwards, and I think that Donald Trump against Pete Buttigieg will be able to win the state of Alaska with a solid margin once again for the Republican Party. So this puts Donald Trump up at 116 electoral votes to beat Pete Buttigieg's 126. I will also give him the 1st congressional district of Maine. So this gives Buttigieg 126 and Trump 116, so a 10 electoral vote lead right now for Pete Buttigieg. And now I'm going to fill in the likely states for both candidates. Starting off with the likely ones, I'm actually going to go with Trump first. So in the state of South Carolina, it's 9 electoral votes I have going for Donald Trump. I think that he will almost win it by a solid margin, but I think that it will be between 7 and 15%, making it a likely state. I also have the state of Texas. This is not too surprising. There's really no chance that Trump wins it by over 15%, even against Pete Buttigieg, but I think it's 40 electoral votes are going to be pretty locked in for Donald Trump. I think it's going to be a pretty strong likely margin, maybe over 10 points again for Trump. If you look at the 2020 results, he won the state by just 5%. In 2016, it was a margin of 9%. You go back to 2012, Mitt Romney won it by 16 percentage points. So definitely the state of Texas is not, a good state for Trump in terms of how he has performed there. However, he is still, going to win this state pretty overwhelmingly, considering how large the population of Texas is. Even though the state continues to shift to the left just demographically, Joe Biden, increased off of Clinton's margin by a huge amount in 2020. Pete Buttigieg in 2024, I think it will be a step back for the Democratic Party. And I also have the states of Iowa and Ohio, both as likely. Trump won them by 8 to 9% in both 2020 and 2016. Even though Joe Biden was expected to do better, as you can see here in 2016, Trump plus 9.4, 9.1 in Ohio. 2020, Trump plus 8.1 in Ohio and just 8% in 8.1 in Iowa and just 8% in Ohio. So for both of these states, I mean, Biden was expected to do a lot better like he did in the Rust Belt. He definitely did underperform expectations in the upper Rust Belt as well here along the blue wall. However, Ohio and Iowa, I mean, Biden was leading the polls in both these states until the very end. And I mean, for both these states, it was expected that at least Biden would cut Trump's margin in half. However, in the end, that did not happen at all. Trump won them by essentially the same margin, even though the Democratic Party spent huge amounts of money trying to flip these two states back that, Obama won just in 2012. I mean, 4 years before Trump, both these states, 3% for Obama and 5.8% for Iowa in his re-election. You go back to 2008, Iowa voted for Trump by 9.5%, or Obama by 9.5%, and in Ohio, they voted for Obama by 4.6%. So definitely, the Democratic Party has lost their grip on both of these states, and they really probably are not going to be able to get it back anytime soon. So both these states put Donald Trump up at 188 electoral votes. Iowa has the 2nd District of Maine, and those are the likely states I have currently for the former president. Now, for Pete Buttigieg, I have a lot. These are typically the solid Democratic states that I don't think Pete Buttigieg will be able to win by over 15 points. So Oregon, of course, 8 electoral votes there for Buttigieg. Also, the home state of Joe Biden being Delaware, the state of New Jersey, Connecticut, and Rhode Island, as well as the state of Illinois and Colorado. So this puts Pete Buttigieg at 191 electoral votes. I think that all these states are going to vote with the Democratic Party for sure, even if Pete Buttigieg is the nominee. However, I think that some other likely states like New Mexico and Virginia, typically, that are likely, I don't think they'll be able to go for Pete Buttigieg by over 7%. So now we're going to move to the states that I will classify as lean for both of these candidates. There are 2 electoral votes apart with their solid and likely states filled in. So I think that this race is going to be a very interesting one if this is, the eventual outcome, because both these nominees are flawed, I think, in many ways. But I think Donald Trump right now, in terms of how horribly the Democratic Party is doing in terms of their popularity now that they control almost all of government, I think that Trump is going to go into 2024 with a big advantage, because even though, so many voters wanting to get Trump out, Joe Biden, I don't think met, their expectations, for how a Biden presidency would be, which is why the Democratic Party is doing so poorly now. After Afghanistan in August, you saw Joe Biden's approval just tank down to around 42% where it is right now, and it has seemed to settle there. It is basically the approval rating that Donald Trump had throughout most of his presidency in the middle 2 to 3 years. So I'm now going to classify the lean states for Pete Buttigieg. We have the state of New Mexico. I think that this is a state that he'll almost definitely win, but the margin definitely won't be anything for him to be too happy about. I also have the state of Minnesota, 10 electoral votes. The state has voted for the Democratic Party in every single election since the election of Richard Nixon in 1972. So the re-election of Richard Nixon, that was the last time the state ever voted for the Republican Party in 1972. And I think that it will be pretty hard for the Democratic Party to hold on to it in 2024 with Buttigieg as a nominee. In 2016, Hillary Clinton only won the state by 1.5%, so it was a very close call for them. And I think that in 2024, in this scenario, Pete Buttigieg will be able to hold on to it with a bit of a larger margin of over 2% than Hillary Clinton's 1.5% margin, but it will still be very difficult for him to win in Minnesota, the state of Virginia as well. I think the margin could go quite a bit down. You did see Glenn Youngkin win against Terry McAuliffe there. I don't think that's going to have too much of an effect on 2024 because Terry McAuliffe, he was not a good nominee for the Democratic Party, and the way he campaigned really was just not the best. But in 2020, Joe Biden did win the state by 10.1%. Clinton won it by just 5.3%, and in 2012, it was just 3.9% for Barack Obama. So this state has shifted more and more to the left since the election of Obama, who flipped it in 2008. However, I think that it will, go backwards in 2020. And its 13 electoral votes will go to Pete Buttigieg, but by a lean margin. We also have the at-large vote in Maine as lean for Pete Buttigieg. I think that this is a pretty fair classification for this state. I think it will be a little bit under 7%, and this gives Pete Buttigieg now 221 electoral votes. For Trump, we have quite a few lean states on this map as well. I'm going to go from west to east here. So starting off with the state of Arizona, 11 electoral votes. I think Trump will be able to flip this state back for the Republican Party. Joe Biden flipped it for the first time since 1996 in 2020. 2020 won it by 0.3%. Last time a Democrat won here was in 1996 when Clinton won his re-election and won the state of Arizona by 2.2%. So Joe Biden did do worse than Clinton, almost 24 years ago. However, this was a pretty significant win as the Democratic Party had not won there for a very, very long time. And, this is a state that's continuously shifting more and more to the left as its urban population increases. Biden flipped Maricopa County, which is what won him the state in the very end. This was a state that Clinton lost by 3.5%. So a pretty big swing for Joe Biden in 2020. We also have the state of Wisconsin up here. It's 10 electoral votes. I think we'll go lean for Donald Trump. The Rust Belt in general is just an area that Donald Trump does very well in. If you look at the 2008 presidential election against John McCain, Obama won the entirety of the Rust Belt. Every single Rust Belt state was won by Barack Obama. Every single state here in the Midwest, Obama won. He even came very, very close to winning Missouri. Just a margin of 0.1% separated him and McCain in the state of Missouri. Which at this point, you can't even imagine voting for the Democratic Party. Joe Biden lost Missouri by 15%. But in 2008, Obama lost the state by just 0.1%. And 2004, Bush won the state by 7.2%. He also won Indiana, Ohio, and Iowa, and barely lost in Wisconsin to John Kerry. So in 2008, Obama controlled the entirety of the Rust Belt. States like Illinois voted for him by 25%, but this, is given that Illinois was the state that he served as a senator from when he ran for president. Michigan, though, voted for him by 16%, Pennsylvania double digits, Wisconsin 14%, Minnesota double digits as well. Iowa almost a double-digit margin there, and Indiana even voted for Obama by 10%. In 2004, this was a margin of 20.7% for George W. Bush against John Kerry. Bush won this state by 20.7%, but in 2008, Obama won by 1%. Now, in 2012, he lost Indiana, of course, not too surprising, but he still held on to every other state here in the Midwest. In 2016, though, Trump flips every single one. You go from having all but one for the Democratic Party in 2012 to having two. They had two states here with Illinois, which of course only votes for the Democratic Party because of Chicago, and Minnesota, who Clinton won by just 1.5%. In 2020, Joe Biden flips most of them back. They now have 5 out of the 8 states that I consider to be in the Rust Belt here. The states of Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, and then these 3 states up here. So, although Joe Biden flips them back, these are very weak margins. He barely won these states. Illinois, only 17%. Minnesota, 7%, which was pretty good for the Democratic Party, to be honest. But 2016, this really just showed just how dominant Trump is in the Rust Belt. And so that's why I am giving Wisconsin to him with a lean margin. I'm also going to give him North Carolina. I don't think this should be too controversial. 16 electoral votes. The Republicans have won it by a lean margin for quite a while, 3.7 in 2016, a margin of 2% in 2012. 2008, Barack Obama actually won this state. This is the first time the Democratic Party won in North Carolina since the election of 1976 with the election of Jimmy Carter against Gerald Ford. So North Carolina has not voted for the Democratic Party since 1976. Which is the last time that the state of Texas voted for the Democratic Party. But North Carolina, there is one exception, and that was the election of 2008. However, in 2020, Biden was able to bring the margin down to 1.3, but it was definitely not enough for him to actually win the race. So I do have it as lean for Donald Trump. I also have the state of Georgia as lean for the former president. I think that he'll be able to flip this state back as well. The state, still has a very long Republican history. Before 2020, it did not vote for the Democratic Party since 1992 with the first election of Bill Clinton, although he did lose it in 1996 by 1.2% to Bob Dole. So if you do look at the 2020 presidential election, Biden barely won this state by a smaller margin even than Arizona. So this really was a very narrow victory for him, and I think that Pete Buttigieg, in the political landscape that we're in right now, has absolutely no chance in this state. I also have finally the state of Florida as the final lean state. Not too surprising, Trump won this state by 3.4% in 2020 against Joe Biden, even though he only won it by 1.2 against Hillary Clinton. So Trump definitely does do very well in Florida. There's no way it goes over 7%, even against Pete Buttigieg, but it will definitely still be a win for him in its 30 electoral votes. I have added for Donald Trump. And now for the tilt states for Pete Buttigieg, I have a state of New Hampshire. I think it will be tilt for him. I think that he will barely win the state. It's a pretty disappointing margin, similar to what Clinton had in 2016, but I think that the GOP won't be able to flip New Hampshire quite yet in 2024. And in the 2nd district of Nebraska, I do have it as lean for the GOP, so I forgot to classify that previously, but it will be lean for the Republican Party. In the state of Nevada, 6 electoral votes I have going for Donald Trump as well. And yes, I do realize that Trump has crossed 270 electoral votes. So yes, I do believe that Donald Trump will be able to defeat Pete Buttigieg in 2024 as of right now. So in the state of Nevada, 6 electoral votes, a state that both Joe Biden and Clinton won by 2.4%. It used to be a much larger margin under Obama, 12.5% in 2008, and a margin of, I believe, 6.7% in 2012. So in the state of Nevada, 6 electoral votes, it will finally go for the GOP. The last time this state voted for the Republican Party was in the election of 2004 with the re-election of Bush. So I do think Trump will be able to flip it back, but it will be a pretty tough victory for him there. And I also have the 2 Rust Belt states of Michigan and Pennsylvania going for Donald Trump. So you do see what we saw here in 2016. I do think that Trump will be able to win in both of these regions. So 15 and 19 electoral votes for Donald Trump. I just don't think Pete Buttigieg will be able to hold on to these states here in the Rust Belt, a region that Donald Trump typically does do well in. And one thing that I do want to address is that even though Pete Buttigieg is was the mayor of a small city in Indiana, being South Bend, not exactly a small city, but in terms of being in the state, it's a pretty large one. But in general, it is a pretty small city, and I think that him being the mayor of a city from the state really won't have too much of an impact. He's still very unpopular in many other regions. The city he was elected to was a Republican one, but definitely I don't think it's going to make too much of a difference for him here on the national level. So I have Pete Buttigieg at 225 electoral votes, losing to Donald Trump at 313 for this 2024 presidential election scenario. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure you like it down below if you enjoyed it. Comment down below who you think would win in a potential matchup between Buttigieg and Trump. Subscribe to my channel if you have not, and I'll see you guys in the next video.